I'm having an interview with Tim Holmes this afternoon about a little surprise he sent. I opened my mailbox last night and I had this postcard from Tim. Now, Tim has on here a photograph of a sculpture that he has done. I just was speechless when I read this postcard. Tim said, "Dear Skip, it's said that after the Tiananmen Square massacre, the Chinese government sent bills to the families of protesters for the cost of their executions. Whether true or not, this is the cast of human evil. I'm researching early metallurgy and discovered that in Christ's time, iron was a strategic material. I imagine if nails were used for crucifixions, the families of the victims would be charged with returning the nails to the government. This image is Mary post-crucifixion, and the name of the piece is Returning the Nails, Endurance by Tim Holmes."
Hello, my name is Tim Holmes. I'm a sculptor and an artist. I was researching ancient metallurgy techniques when I discovered, much to my surprise, that in biblical times, iron was more valuable than even gold. The reason is because in the Bronze Age, iron was the only metal that would hold a sharp edge, and therefore it became the preferred tool of war. As such, it was seen as a strategic material, much like nuclear technology is for us today. It was so valuable, in fact, that even smelting techniques were a highly controlled state secret. So, if iron nails were used for a crucifixion, afterwards, I think it would have been up to the family of the victim to return the nails to the ruling power. And so, I created this bronze called Returning the Nails, Endurance, depicting Mary, the mother of Jesus, returning the nails to the Roman authorities upon having removed her son's body from the cross. To me, this presents us a universal symbol of defiance. It represents the ascendancy of moral righteousness above the heartless authority of pure power. Surely in your own life, you have suffered the indignity of having your humanity overruled by some great power that holds your freedom and perhaps your very life totally in its control. By symbolically returning the nails to that power, you declare that your human dignity is more powerful than any earthly authority. And much as that authority may hold your very life in its hands, it can never rule your heart. By returning to that power, the tools of violence that it uses against you, you can declare that although any coward can use violence to achieve quick results to their advantage, ultimately the power of love will always prevail over the love of power. By returning the nails, each one of us can take back our dignity.
So, Tim, how long ago did you do this sculpture? I'm just curious.
1993.
My goodness. And so has anybody picked up on it since then? What's happened about it?
Well, I've had several people have a reaction similar to what you're talking about. It hasn't been exhibited very often. It was actually in the exhibit that I'm most known for. I was the first American artist ever to be invited to exhibit in the Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg, Russia.
Right.
And that's one of the pieces that was included in that show. It's a little bit hard to summarize because it seems as though people have to understand what the context is in order to get anything out of the sculpture.
Yeah.
And so it's really necessary to know what the story is, because the story is the sculpture more than the form. The form really is not the sculpture, it's the story that's the sculpture. And so when people look at the form, it's almost impossible to figure out what's going on.
Right.
To know what the story is.
You have to have the story.
Yeah.
But I found this sculpture when I read Tim's postcard and looked carefully at the sculpture, I mean, I was literally immobilized by the enormity of what this image means and can mean for dissidents in the future. I just want to read my email to Tim from this morning, and that will have a part of my reaction. So I said, "Dear Tim, your postcard was in my mailbox late last night when I came home from dinner out. Both the image and your message stunned me. I couldn't move for about an hour, just staring at it. Part of that time trying to grok the image from only one perspective, which, as you say, it's difficult to get the sculpture. In any case, your kindness initiated quite a conscious-unconscious riff, which continues. There are a lot of linkages here, poetry par excellence. But suffice it to say that I have asked Deb to check at our local True Value store whether they carry wrought iron barn nails, which we could start sending to evil people. 4-inch long ones would probably do. It strikes me that we should do another interview focused only on this piece. The symbolism of both your sculpture and the nails can be very powerful and can run the gamut. The point is that I had quite a riff going about this, and it has now involved 2 synchronicities since last night. Obviously, I immediately had the association of render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, which is, it's Matthew 22:21. Render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's, render to God the things that are God's. What had crossed my mind was that there should be a subtext to this, which is, here are your nails, I will carry the future with me. And these nails could be a symbol for dissidents everywhere in every climate and place. So for example,
I love that idea. I think that's a brilliant deduction from the subject.
I also think of just the gesture that's in this image, and I'll just show it here again. The gesture of Mary holding out the nails reminds me of the unsinkable Molly Brown. And Molly was, I ain't down yet. Basically, I'll carry the future with me. And that's what Mary was saying.
Yeah.
And so I had just read your response to that as I'm driving in the car coming home from this event I was at. I walk in the front door, and here's Debbie and her mother sitting there listening to the unsinkable Molly Brown. I go, oh my God, I can't believe this.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
There are 2 bronzes that I've done so far. And one is the one you've shown, which is called Endurance. There's another one, which I just pulled up on my screen here, if you can see it. This one's called Returning the Nails Conviction. And it's a little more accusatory.
Aha, yeah, that is more accusatory, my goodness. Wow.
And it's exactly the same pose with a more virulent attitude. What I'm concentrating on is Mary's attitude.
Yes.
So in this one, of course, she's full of fury, and she is, well, I think it's self-explanatory.
Yeah.
All right, so you can see the difference between these 2 images.
Right.
The Endurance has more to do with the strength of her character. So she's absorbed the fact that the government is not made of human beings. It is an institution, a cold mechanical institution. And this is the requirement of her. And she has to be able to stand up and essentially carry her own cross by delivering the nails back to the government. My intention when I started this series was to do a 3rd one called Forgiveness. And I have been trying to pull out of my own character the temerity to be able to do a third version that is about her willingness to say, here you go, here are your nails back, and believe it or not, I forgive you. Which is, of course, what Jesus did on the cross.
Yeah, that was Jesus's job, though. That wasn't Mary's job.
Right, yeah.
What mother would forgive them, actually? I can't imagine it.
Yeah, and especially because it's an institution. And how can you possibly, there are plenty of examples of mothers who have forgotten their children's murderers. And that's a pretty powerful thing. But I can't think of anybody who said to the state, oh, I forgive you for that.
Right.
Or any kind of an institution.
In a way, I appreciate the first version more, okay? Because she knows she's the mother of God. She's known it since before Christ was born. She knows she'll carry the future with her.
Yeah.
And then if you apply that metaphor to anything that we're dissident about, for example, climate change, and the fact that the oil industry and the oil and gas industry is destroying the planet, if we could get an idea into people's heads that they could return nails to oil company executives, for example, it might be that they might get a lot of barn nails in the mail.
Well, I love that idea. It's the kind of thing that once you know what the impetus of this story is, that the nail takes on that significance that is incredibly powerful.
Sure.
And so if the story was widespread enough that people could actually send the executive the nail and message got across, I think that would be a really incredibly powerful.
Well, you could just have a postcard and put the nail through the postcard, right? So that the nail is mounted on the postcard, and the postcard can have the message, and could have the message of what the image means, as well as, it could actually be this postcard with 2 holes in it with the nail through it. And on the back, you put the story of Mary and how it applies to this particular bunch of brigands, these evil people, whatever you're protesting. Okay, I've had plenty of things to protest in my life.
Yeah. Right.
But whatever you're protesting, you can explain what returning the nails means, and you can read and you can apply it specifically to whatever your thing that you're protesting is, and just put it in an envelope and send it off. If the idea got around, which it can easily do, it can get around only from hearing this interview, okay? Then a lot of these evil people, these brigands, could get a lot of nails in the mail.
Well, I'm thinking as you're speaking, I think it's a great idea. What I can do right away is put a high quality, high res image of that sculpture on my Patreon page and make it public so anybody can access it.
Yes.
Or my website, timholmesstudio.com, with the image and the story, so people could print their own card if they wanted to.
Sure.
I've had a bunch of these postcards, and I can also print the story on the back. But that is a great possibility, and I love the idea of using it as an expression of protest.
Right. And knowing that, ultimately the people that are the dissenters in the climate change environment are going to win, because we'll be forced to as a species ultimately. There's no doubt about that. I hope it doesn't take 2,000 years, but
You haven't got that long.
no, but you could conceivably get some news coverage. out of the movement, returning the nails movement. I mean, we could even create a little website. Let me just quickly read through these other notes here. Contemplation of Tim Holmes' statue, returning the nails. It is a symbol of saying to a tyrant in the physical world, you win this time, but in the greater scheme of things, you will lose.
Right.
It's also a way to say good karma will win in the end. This is your bad karma, take it back.
Right. It's a statement of renouncing violence in favor of love.
Right.
In the end, love is more powerful. Violence is quicker.
Right.
But violence can never overcome love.
Precisely. And so I was thinking back in the day, we could have sent nails to Richard Nixon after his 1972 landslide victory when he won 49 states in November of 1972, and he was out of office 19 months later. But as you say, if you have this with the story on the back, then you could send them a nail and they would understand what it meant when they got the nail. Okay.
Well, it just so happens a couple of days ago, I met with the CEO of our utility company in Montana. And for precisely this reason, I wanted to hold his feet to the fire over climate change. And fortunately, it's a very aware gentleman who is, I think, really trying to do the right thing, even though the company is like a dinosaur trying to hold on to the 19th century.
Mm-hmm.
And I still don't understand why the executive can't move the company farther forward.
Yes.
But even so, if he was to have a nail, there would be a daily reminder that there is serious, serious consequences beyond all of our lives.
Right. And if he were to get 1,000 nails, rough-hewed nails in the mail, that would start to get their attention, I would think.
Yeah.
I don't know. So think about it. I think that there is definite potential there.
The one thing I want to add, one of the things that I built into the endurance sculpture is a face that changes expressions when you look at it from the side as opposed to the front.
This, to me, this idea of returning the nails is definitely a symbol. It's a very powerful symbol, and in the Jungian sense of a symbol. And the fact that, it spontaneously emerged from you, the fact that it spontaneously emerged from you 2,000 years later. I mean, of course, I've never heard a story that said that Mary returned the nails, and I don't think you have either.
Right.
But the fact that it emerges as a symbol is really significant for us now in terms of moving into the next stage of consciousness, because she's returning the nails to the physical world, and she's going to carry the future with her in the psyche, in the other world, in the afterlife, in the future of her son in this image. So I'll carry the future with me. Take your nails. I'll carry them.
And as we can see through history, she's the one who persisted. Mm-hmm. And the message of Jesus, it's had a powerful effect on history that the Roman government could never touch.
Right. I mean, the Roman government is not around anymore. And, we barely even know the name of any Roman governor of those times. I mean, we know Pontius Pilate, I guess. But other than that, we don't know a heck of a lot about them. And they were the ruling people at that time. And meanwhile, she's had her assumption into heaven. So it's quite a difference.
Quite a difference. And when you look at the most virulent cruelty, and this is, crucifixion is probably the perfect example of the most virulent cruelty. It has no effect on history. All you do is wipe out one person and you scare a bunch of people.
Yeah, sure.
And the love of a human being can resonate all throughout the centuries. That we have hundreds and thousands of stories of powerful people who have changed history by their love.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I just think this image coming right now, when we need to have a new image that helps us get into this new stage of consciousness, and your interpretation of it is a perfect symbol of that, because you're going to leave behind the physical world, the nails, and you're going to take the future. She's going to take the future with her, because we know she did. Right? And so we don't have to see it in the physical world. I mean, you can build a monument, but the monument is going to ultimately be taken down. Will there be a Trump Tower in 200 years? Probably not. Thank you so much for sending this to me. I'm going to get this one framed for in a two-sided frame so I can keep it, because it's just very meaningful to me, and I appreciate it.
Well, great. And I have more of these cards. If anybody really wants an original, I could send them one if they get their information to me.
Okay, terrific. Anyway, peace, Tim. Take care now.
All right.
See you soon. Bye.
I know.
Hello, my name is Tim Holmes. I'm a sculptor and an artist. I was researching ancient metallurgy techniques when I discovered, much to my surprise, that in biblical times, iron was more valuable than even gold. The reason is because in the Bronze Age, iron was the only metal that would hold a sharp edge, and therefore it became the preferred tool of war. As such, it was seen as a strategic material, much like nuclear technology is for us today. It was so valuable, in fact, that even smelting techniques were a highly controlled state secret. So, if iron nails were used for a crucifixion, afterwards, I think it would have been up to the family of the victim to return the nails to the ruling power. And so, I created this bronze called Returning the Nails, Endurance, depicting Mary, the mother of Jesus, returning the nails to the Roman authorities upon having removed her son's body from the cross. To me, this presents us a universal symbol of defiance. It represents the ascendancy of moral righteousness above the heartless authority of pure power. Surely in your own life, you have suffered the indignity of having your humanity overruled by some great power that holds your freedom, and perhaps your very life, totally in its control. By symbolically returning the nails to that power, you declare that your human dignity is more powerful than any earthly authority. And much as that authority may hold your very life in its hands, it can never rule your heart. By returning to that power the tools of violence that it uses against you, you can declare that although any coward can use violence to achieve quick results to their advantage, ultimately the power of love will always prevail over the love of power. By returning the nails, each one of us can take back our dignity.